Rev up your engines!
Looks like Volkswagen and Honda are taking opposite views on electric cars. Volkswagen is speeding up their electrical vehicle production by 2023 to be making 1 million electric cars a year, which of course might have something to do with it's a European company. Europeans seem to be pushing electricity, where Honda sees that hybrids is more of the future. Honda feels that people want hybrid cars, and they're not really sold on pure electric cars yet. I think I'd go with the Honda CEO myself. The big market is the United States. I don't think we're ready for electric cars yet. Maybe in Europe, they'll be selling a bunch of them. The European people seem to love to be pushed around by the governments telling them what to do all the time, so if the government says you're going to drive electric cars, you will. We're here. The government tells Americans to drive electric cars, they'll probably go out and buy the biggest gas guzzlers they can just to get even, because they don't like listening to what the government has to tell them. And Honda, they're a pretty smart company. Those guys, they started with little bitty motorcycles and started to make cars that had a twin-cylinder motorcycle air-cooled engine. Now they make great, strong engines, and they sell millions and millions of cars. Honda is now the #1 internal combustion engine maker of the world. I don't know. I think Honda might hit the nail on the head a little bit more than Volkswagen, especially the United States. Hybrids are going to be more than electric cars for quite a bit of time. Even more so like BMW, you get an electric car with a little motorcycle engine in it that charges the battery so it still runs at full power, and when it runs out of electricity, it runs on the gasoline motor that runs the generator that makes it go. They still have full power, they're just running off the battery from a generator instead of the battery itself. Maybe Honda's right here. Be interested to see what happens. 2023, Volkswagen says they're going to be making 1 million EVs a year. Let's see if they can sell them. Fab 94 says, Scotty, shout out to New York City. Thinking about leasing a 2020 Infiniti Q50 3.0T with all-wheel drive. Any thoughts on the car? We get a lot of snow and slush in New York. If you followed me, you know that I am not a fan of Infiniti. They can be decent cars when they're new, but as they age, they cost a lot of money to fix, and they do tend to break down, but generally not until they get 100,000 miles or more. You're talking about leasing one. If you don't mind the expensive lease payment, and you're not going to buy the car back on a buyback, you're just going to lease it, and when a lease up, get rid of it. Go right ahead. They generally don't have that many problems. And even if they did, you're leasing the car. It's not your problem. You're leasing it. If it doesn't work, they got to give you another car. If it gets fixed under warranty, they got to still give you a car to drive around in, so it ain't going to cost you anything extra. When you do lease a car, those are high payments. You never see that money back. So, if you don't mind leasing it, you want to drive it around, hey, it's not going to be your problem. Just don't buy one brand new. You're going to lose your shirt, because then when they get older and they start breaking, they have no resale value, so all your money went down the toilet. In that case, you are much better off leasing than buying if you want that particular vehicle. Ranger89 says, Scotty, I got an 03 Honda Civic DX, 188,000 miles. My wife was driving it with no oil in the motor and black smoke coming out of it. Okay. You don't want to drive a car with no oil. Now, it had to have some kind of oil in it, because if it had absolutely no oil, the engine would just lock up metal to metal. Now, I have had customers bring me those things. Some of them only half a quart of oil came out when I drained them, and it should be 4 quarts, but only half a quart came out. But luckily enough, when I changed the oil and put brand new oil in, it ran okay. Sometimes that'll happen. So what you want to do is change the oil filter, put in really good oil like Castrol, run it, and pray. Because if it doesn't run right, if it clacks, or if it keeps smoking, the engine's been ruined. You don't want to run a car low on oil and dirty on oil, but pray that it didn't go too far. And if it didn't, great. Then you check the oil in her car. You make a logbook to know what mileage it's time to change the oil on. Don't leave it to her. Like with my wife, she has no idea. If I'd say, hey, look, I'm changing the oil in your car, she says, didn't you just do that? And I said, yeah, last year I did. We don't drive much, so I just change it once a year. She puts like 3,400 miles on her car every year. Now that she's retired, she doesn't go to work, so you only need to change it once a year. But she has no idea, so take it onto your shoulders and pray it didn't destroy the engine. J. Dent Warner says, Got it. I'm looking at a 2013 Hyundai Veloster Turbo, 110,000 miles. There's no crashes in the Carfax reports. All right, stay away from that car. I'm not a Korean car fan. Now, you could buy one of those things brand new. It might last pretty much trouble-free. 100,000 miles. That one's got, what, 110,000 miles on it. You do not want to buy a used one, even a regular engine, but especially a turbocharged engine. It's more strain, more stress. I mean, if you're a gambling man and you like the idea because they're cute-looking cars and it's a turbo and you can pick it up for almost nothing. It is 7 years old and 110,000 miles. Now, you can buy it for $1,000, $1,500 and it runs good now, and you want to toy around with it as a toy car, go right ahead. That's not much money to spend. But if it's going for a lot of money, don't even think about buying it. Buy a much better car than that. And it's near the end of its lifespan anyways, having a turbo on it and being a Korean car where the engines are weak in the first place. George, the new mechanic, says, Scotty, we're planning on purchasing a new car when our 2014 Grand Caravan breaks down. Well, that might be pretty soon. The way those things are. We're thinking about Corolla or Honda Accord, both with manual transmissions. What do you think? You're talking about manual transmissions. So, they both make great manual transmissions and they both make great engines. Your choice there is more, what do you want? Because a Corolla, they're excellent cars. But a Honda Accord, it's a more luxurious car. Of course, the Corolla is going to get better gas mileage. Both of them are going to last a really long time. But it really depends on what you want to get. See how they fit one versus the other. You might just decide, hey, you want the Accord because you want more luxurious and more room and stuff. Especially if you got big kids, you'll probably be happier with the Accord. Because with the standard transmission, they're both excellent vehicles. And they'll both last a really long time. I mean, if you were a single person, I'd just say, hey, get this Corolla. They can run forever. But you got the whole family to think about. Ben W. says, Scotty and Company, I got an issue where I've been hearing noises from the right front wheel when I turn right. You always want to start out with the obvious things. Jack the carpenter. Pull it at 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock. And pull it at 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock. You get thumping, see what's thumping. If it goes thumping that way, check the ball joint. If it goes thumping this way, check the tie rods. If it thumps the whole way around, you got worn out wheel bearing. Start there. Depending on the kind of noise you hear. If you only hear it when you turn right, especially if you accelerate, it's often a bad CV joint. Jack it up, just look under there. The joint is covered with a rubber boot. If the boot's ripped and the grease leaked out, the joint's shot. That's a real easy thing to check out. So always look at the obvious things first when you're fixing things. Then go further if you have to. But if you see play or you hear ripped parts, you know that's where you start. Sheldon says, Scotty, I need your help. I have a problem with my gas gauge. It is an up and down problem. My filler goes up, it goes down, it goes up. Your fuel gauge. They're relatively simple. There's just a float, and it floats. When you fill the gas up, it floats higher, and when it goes down, it goes down. On the other end of the arm, there is a little electronic part, and it goes up and down on that, sending in different amounts of electricity to the gauge to make the gauge go up and down. The only real part that wears out is generally the float assembly inside there. It's a one-piece assembly with the float and the electrical part, because you got an electrical part, it's what, soaked in gasoline. Eventually the seals go bad and they go bad. Now if it's not that, it can be any connectors, it could even be the part in the dash that's going bad, but 90-something% of the time it's the float in the gas tank that's the problem. It's in a Zuzu, so at least it's got an access panel. You don't have to drop the gas tank. You can get to it, take it apart from the top, and then put a new part in. And if you can get them aftermarket, the aftermarket ones work perfectly fine. They cost a lot less than what the dealer ones do. Jay Newman says, Scotty, do you think it's reasonable for a dealership to ask $100 for a diagnostic fee after taking a car for a test drive to see if a CV axle is bad? Car makes a clanking noise at low speeds. How long can I drive on an axle like that? It doesn't vibrate. You only hear it when you turn in a parking lot. It depends on how much of a gambling person you are. I have a customer. He had a Honda Civic, and he drove it with both of the axles, all four of the CV joints, the boot had ripped. You could hear him a block down the street driving, and he still drove it for 3 years, and then he sold it. Now, eventually it could break and then it won't run anywhere, but, you know, that's up to you. Sometimes you go a really long time. You know, the dealers always charge $100 diagnostic, no matter what they did, you know. If all they did was driving around a block and heard the noise, I mean, that's kind of a stinker. You need to take it up on a lift and look at it and show it. But if the boot's ripped, you could have easily done that yourself. Get a flashlight, look, and you see the boot's ripped, you know the joint's worn. Just do it yourself. And, of course, if you are going to get it fixed, don't take it to the dealer. They're just outrageous price on that. I'll give you an example. The dealer brand new CV axles can be as much as $750. The aftermarket ones can be as little as $59. G3669 says, Scotty, I got an 03 Malibu 3.1 with 223,000 miles. I ran a misfire and I can't figure out why. I replaced all kinds of stuff, but it still has. Misfiring often confuses people because they hear misfire and they think, oh, well, the ignition system isn't firing right. It can be many things. You change the spark plug, change the intake manifold, gasket, change all kinds of things. You didn't mention anything about the fuel pump. Your fuel pump does not put enough pressure to the fuel injectors. It will misfire because the fuel isn't running right. It would be running lean. You would get a lean misfire from not getting enough fuel. Now, sometimes it's as simple as the fuel filter's clogged up, so change the fuel filter. If that doesn't do it, pressure and volume test the fuel pump, because if the pump doesn't pump enough, you can get a misfire. And that's things that people often miss on. They also don't understand that they think it's a misfire, so it's got to be the ignition system. If you've got bad fuel injectors, you can also get misfires because they're not filling it up with fuel right either. That's why the misfire code is one of the hardest to fix, the random misfire, because there are literally dozens of different things that can cause the misfiring. First, check the filter and the fuel pump. You did a lot of other things, and if you didn't check that, it's what? 17-year-old Malibu with 223,000 miles. It could easily be just the fuel filter's clogged or the pump's going out, because the pumps rarely last that long anyway. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.